Today is Saturday, April 19th. If you're feeling especially overwhelmed by the news lately, you're not alone. From a flurry of executive orders to economic uncertainty to wars and tragedies in the headlines, the constant flow of information can be hard to handle and sometimes hard to turn off. So today, we're talking with psychologist and author Tanya Israel about how to stay grounded in the midst of it all. Israel is a professor of counseling psychology at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and award-winning author of Beyond Your Bubble, How to Connect Across the Political Divide, and her latest book, Facing the Fracture, How to Navigate the Challenges of Living in a Divided Nation. While news fatigue is not new, she's sharing insights today into why the news might feel especially stressful right now, what most people get wrong about those with different political opinions, and how to gain back a feeling of control and calm despite nonstop news notifications. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Tanya Israel, thank you so much for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
I am delighted to be back with you.
First, can you just give us a brief idea of what you're seeing and hearing from people right now about overwhelm from the news?
I'm hearing a couple of different things related to the news specifically. Some of it is, I am so distressed that I am not even paying attention to it, or I'm trying not to, but it keeps seeping in. And other people who are just, immersed in it constantly. But either way, it seems to be really distressing to folks.
We've obviously seen a lot of executive orders, an uncertain economy now, plane crashes, the list goes on. What news do you feel is especially causing some of these feelings of overwhelm? And what do you think is really behind it? Is it uncertainty? Is it change, fear, et cetera?
There is distress about things going on in terms of the economy, what's happening with the stock market. Also in terms of certainly so many executive orders and so many changes going on there that people are trying to adjust to, and some of which are targeting certain communities. So, I'm hearing people who are distressed about anti-DEI and attacks on higher education more broadly, reductions in funding for, terminations of research projects. I'm also hearing people concerned about the impacts that they're seeing in their local communities in terms of ICE coming in and being present and deporting people. So there's a lot of different things, and some of it for people depends on where their focus is and where they're situated in terms of what's particularly distressing. In terms of what it actually is, I think some of it is actually that, because there are the issues that people really care about, and particularly the issues that affect people on a personal level in terms of their lives. But there is also, this, just what you're talking about, just the uncertainty and the chaos of it and not knowing exactly where things are going to go, I think is just a very hard state to be in.
You talked about some people trying to avoid it altogether. Other people are fully immersed. But my guess is that it doesn't need to be all or nothing. What's your recommendation when it comes to how much news to take in? We here at the Newsworthy try to do these 10-minute daily news roundups to keep people informed without having it be too much. But I am curious your thoughts on how much news to take in and how people should try to handle that.
I think that the first thing to do is figure out, where do you want to get your information, and choosing news sources that you feel like are going to help you to get the kind of information you want, but also in the way that you want. So some news sources have a tone that is just emotionally activating. And I have been trying to stay away from that myself, because I find that I can get the same information from other sources that don't seem as intent on getting me riled up. Also recognizing what's the narrative that your news sources are promoting, and recognizing that even when it's accurate, it's a particular take on things. It's a small slice of things. So I also sometimes find it helpful to see how that same story is being covered in different sources. And I find that to be helpful too. It fills in some gaps, or it at least helps me to understand how on earth people can see things so differently when, the factual information seems so obvious to me. Then also thinking about how much time do you want to spend with the news? And the first thing I'll say is, whatever you do not have it on in the background constantly during the day. That's actually just not helpful in terms of staying informed, and it's not healthy for us. So it's great to turn off our notifications, our news notifications, so that we're not constantly getting pinged, because that also is emotionally activating for us. And think, okay, well, what do I want to find out? And how much time do I want to spend there? Like whether you want to know what's going on in Ukraine right now, you want to know what the latest executive order was, or you want to know what Taylor Swift was wearing last night. Whatever it is that you want to find out, figure out, okay, how long do I want to spend doing that? And maybe even set a timer for yourself so that you don't just stay in it constantly after that and doom scroll.
Yeah, it's almost how we've also talked about with various experts about social media. Like, it can be useful if it's very conscious and it doesn't just become something you're doing out of habit or you get lost in it. But if you're aware of it, that's good.
Exactly.
And I know you've also talked about civic engagement is important and actually is declining. Can you talk about that and how that plays into our news habits as well?
I think that as we are setting some limits for ourselves on how much we engage with the news, we have to think about, well, what are we going to do with that time? If you're going to put your phone down, what are you actually going to do now? I think whatever we can do to engage with other three-dimensional human beings is a good idea. And so civic engagement is one of the things that I think will have the greatest payoff for us in terms of our own health, our communities, and our democracy. So civic engagement has been on the decline. And that is, showing up even more now in terms of the kind of polarization that we have, that when people are not interacting with each other, and it doesn't even have to be in political realms, it can be in the Rotary Club or volunteering at your library or coaching soccer. Any of these things where we're actually engaging with other people are going to be helpful to be able to, sometimes rub up against other people whose views might be even slightly different from our own. And that just gives us some good practice in being able to do that, which frankly, we're not getting when we're just deeply immersing ourselves in our own news sources.
Or commenting on social media.
Oh my gosh, indeed. And whatever you do, do not try to convince other people to see things the way that you do on social media, because it will probably just drive them further away and create more conflict. So that is not a good avenue for trying to have this kind of dialogue.
And to that point, I mean, because political tensions are so high and people disagree so much, how do you advise, even post-election now, for people to engage with each other and talk to each other about what's going on? Or I guess, should they? Before we would even want to talk to somebody, we may have to do some adjustment of our biases that we have. We have these cognitive biases that are causing us to see people across the political spectrum as being extreme and illogical and hateful, and really having some distorted views of other people who are in our world. And so it's helpful to correct those things. It's helpful to build up some resilience to actually be able to stay in challenging situations, to develop some curiosity and intellectual humility and maybe even compassion. And once we've got a stronger foundation of those things, maybe then we will actually want to have one of those conversations. And if so, we can do that effectively. So I would say now, dialogue is really important, but it's not necessarily what everyone should be doing, and it's not necessarily the first thing that everyone should be doing. So that there's a lot that we can do just individually to correct for some of those distorted views that we have and build up our own skills that if we did have an opportunity for one of those encounters at some point, we would be better equipped to do it. I can hear some pushback of, maybe an executive order is seemingly targeting a particular community or person. And they're saying, now you want me to have compassion for them targeting me? What's your response to someone who's pushing back in that way? There are a few people who are making
very public decisions and actions about things. And then there is the rest of the American public. Most of us are not elected officials. Most of us are not owners of media conglomerates. And so I hear people have a lot of thoughts about what those people should be doing, but then also sort of assuming that anybody who voted for that person or, is part of a community that was more supportive of a particular candidate versus another one, that we're just generalizing our belief about what those people are like and what their beliefs are and where their hearts are. And for the most part, we're getting that wrong. And weirdly, the more news we're watching, the more wrong we're getting it. So the greater our gap in terms of our perception of other people and the reality, the more we're actually immersing ourselves in the news.
Still ahead, does it matter if you listen to audio versus watch video of the news? And what the history of tribal communities can teach us about our own reactions to political tensions today. Plus, how to take action that can be helpful to you and others, even when that too can feel overwhelming. That and more still coming up. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. It's that time of year, and while I love spring for many things, it unfortunately also comes with sneezing, itchy eyes, and nonstop congestion. So why suffer when relief could be a click away? ZocDoc has you covered with easy access to a nearby allergist, a pediatrician for your little ones, a telehealth option for quick care, and more. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, and more. You can filter for doctors who take your insurance, are located nearby, are a good fit for any medical need you may have, and are highly rated by verified patients. I love using it as a simple search engine for doctors that will work for me, whether I want to find a new one or check out more reviews from real patients. Once you find the right doctor, you can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time slot that works, and click to instantly book a visit. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by Honeylove. If you're spring cleaning, start with the essentials and get yourself leggings, shapewear, bras, and more from Honeylove so you can love what you wear. I've learned I can rely on Honeylove's comfort, fit, quality, and look no matter what. And it seems like they think of everything we want but didn't know existed. Their leggings, for example, have it all: comfort, function, and style. Smooth, soft fabric, hidden shaping panels that make me feel extra supported and confident, shear-proof fabric so I have no worries, side pockets for convenience, a super cute look, and more. And Honeylove addresses all of the typical complaints about bras and shapewear, too. All of Honeylove's products make everything I wear feel better. And yes, Honeylove has you covered for the everyday look, workouts, weddings, and more. So go check it out. Treat yourself to the most comfortable and innovative bras, shapewear, and leggings on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/newsworthy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off honeylove.com/newsworthy. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in bras and more with Honeylove. Now back to my conversation with Tanya Israel. We're an audio show, and I think that can be helpful sometimes not to see, say, disturbing video. At the same time, some people may argue that, in order to truly understand the impact of something, you should be witnessing tragedy. What's your take when it comes to visuals and really immersing yourself in various tragedies?
I think some of it has to do with what you are hoping to get out of that. And if there's some action you're hoping to move yourself toward, what's going to be beneficial in doing that. And so sometimes being a closer witness to something will help you to understand it. And I'm also going to say repeatedly exposing yourself to it and just immersing yourself in it is often going to actually have the opposite effect, where you're going to feel overwhelmed by it and you may not then be able to take any action that's going to be particularly beneficial, not just to yourself, but certainly to the people who you want to help.
So how can people who maybe feel overwhelmed, even by thinking about what action should I take, how can they figure out what they could be doing?
So when I say everybody needs to sort of come up with their own plan, some of that has to do with how we're accessing the news, but some of it has to do with what are we doing outside of that? And there are actions that we can take to support our democracy and to support the issues we care about in terms of volunteering. I've been reading the U.S. Constitution, which is a fascinating document. There's lots of things that we can do outside of there. We can also take care of our bodies and our minds. We can think about how much sleep we're getting, participating in physical activities, and also maybe creative activities, social activities. Those are really important things to do, even when there's a time that it feels like things are so difficult, and shouldn't we spend every moment of our time fighting something or getting more informed about something? It's important to have this kind of balance in order to be effective advocates and activists and just humans. I heard so many people struggling with this that I decided what everybody needed was a worksheet. So you can find on my website on tanyaisrael.com, there's a worksheet called Staying Grounded and Engaged in Turbulent Political Times.
I would imagine that extends beyond even politics, because sometimes it can be like, now I have somebody who maybe has anxiety about planes because there's been more plane crashes in the news lately, or, just various tragedies, and not even, aside from political tensions.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things going on that are just plain upsetting. So it's good to know about them in a limited way, but when we find ourselves ruminating on them, obsessing about them, or really the doom scrolling where you're like, I'm just going to watch one video after another about this or read about this so deeply that it just gets us really entrenched, that's when it's important to recognize what's going on for yourself and try to take yourself out of that, spend some time in another activity. It's sometimes not enough to say, just turn off your phone or turn off the news. Like, it's helpful to know, what are you going to do instead? Do you have a knitting project you want to do? Is there a group of people who you want to get together with? So to really put some things into place that are drawing you out of some of that content that's really surrounding you.
I am curious your sentiment of, like, back a long, long time ago, humans, only knew what was going on with their own tribe, let's say, whereas now we know everything that's going on across the entire world. And part of that is what's overwhelming us, because we're not meant to know so much about all of the things. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm glad you bring up what happened in tribal societies, because I think it's actually playing a big role in what's going on here. Because as humans evolved living in these small groups of people, we also, in addition to only knowing what was going on in our own tribe, we also then had some very strong reactions to other tribes because they were really a threat to us. So when we think about what's going on in the world and the news we're taking in, we're not only hearing about what's happening in the world, we're hearing about the people who are on the other side of this issue than we are. And that is some of what is creating so much feeling of threat. And, people talk about feeling unsafe so much. And some of that is because we're really feeling like these people, they don't just have other opinions or other views about things. They really are a threat to us, and they really want harm done to us. And there's research that shows that our estimation of how much they want us harmed is way out of proportion. I think sometimes it can be helpful to know that. Sometimes it can be helpful to notice when you are being fed that message about other people and have that information and perspective to combat it.
Any final thought or anything else to add as we wrap up here today?
Just having some optimism, not based on, any kind of just rosy ideas, but based on the fact that people are really doing things and it's working. Most people in the United States want to come together, want to find common ground, and want the divisiveness to stop. And so I think knowing that helps us to see ourselves as part of that larger movement.
Well, thank you so much to Tanya Israel for all of her insights and helpful suggestions. If you're interested in that worksheet she mentioned to help you come up with your own action plan, we've linked to it in our episode notes. You can also visit her website at tanyaisrael.com and check out her latest book called Facing the Fracture: How to Navigate the Challenges of Living in a Divided Nation. Thank you so much for listening today. We hope to help you navigate the news and lessen that overwhelm feeling on a daily basis through our 10-minute news roundups right here on the Newsworthy podcast. We do the hard work for you of sorting through all the news stories and various news sources to try to bring you a straightforward, easy-to-digest roundup every Monday through Friday. So we'll be back on Monday with the latest news to know in a less overwhelming way. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend.